And I don't know from you, what do you make of the ouster of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and whether you feel he was given a fair process or fair hearing at the courts or not, like he claims? What do you make of the ouster of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua amid ongoing legal battles in the corridors of justice? But before we talk about matters Rigathi Gachagua, this particular moment I just want us to look at what is making headlines in the local dailies here in the country. And before that, I just want to introduce my panelists, starting with Mr. Wilson Sosiona. Very good morning to you, sir. Happy to see you here again.
Yeah, good morning to you and good morning our viewers, wherever you are.
Thank you very much. Also joining me is Mr. Odoyo Widi. Very good morning to you, sir. It's been a minute.
Good morning to you and good morning to Kenyans.
Thank you very much.
It's a bright morning today.
Thank you very much for, of course, making time to be with us. We'll be, of course, joined again by Ndegwa Njiru, who's part of the legal team that was representing, or rather, that is still representing Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. I mean, his efforts, or concerted efforts, to absolve himself from any blame and clear his name. Now, gentlemen, let's just first of all look at what is making headlines in the local dailies. And starting with the Daily Nation. The Daily Nation says the big headline is how Treasury is abetting 437 billion Adani secret deals. They further go ahead to say Treasury has taken advantage of a loophole in procurement laws to secretly enter into contracts without going through a competitive process, sparingly used in the Kibaki and Uhuru eras. Now, little-known clause has now become the foundation of which at least 4 controversial multi-billion shilling tenders with companies that have ties to Indian conglomerate Adani Group are built. Now, starting with you, Mr. Odoyo Widi. Yes. I remember the last time you were here, we sort of talked about this particular issue of the Adani conglomerate and its subsidiaries being issued be given tenders without due process being followed. But it is now imagined that the government is sort of taking advantage of a loophole, as the nation calls it.
I think in Kenya we are being very dishonest people. Instead of talking about contracts between Adani and the government of Kenya, we are talking about Adani. We have painted Adani so dirty that I think they have decided that they are going to paint anything government in such bad light that it will make the people reject it. Instead of us discussing what are the contents, what are the clauses in the agreement between Adani and the government of Kenya, we want to discuss Adani. First of all, there was a spirited campaign to make Adani look a criminal organization. When you research on Adani, even look at their headquarters, you don't see the kind of thing we are being told they are. There is no organization in this country even half as close to what Adani looks like. And then we have been made to believe that Adani is a criminal organization. I think there is somebody who is not being honest. In the past, during the Uhuru regime, we had a contract that built the SGR. The first project to be done under PPPP. The only other one is the expressway. 2 of them, and nobody spoke anything. And SGR is the biggest scandal in this country. Today we want to be told that Adani is the biggest scandal, yet Adani's first contract was just signed the other day with KenGen. This other one they are talking about of the airport has not even been signed. And instead of discussing the contents, we are discussing Adani. Oh. If you want to kill a dog, you give it a bad name. The spirited campaign to tarnish the name of Adani took place over a short period of about 6 or so months. And today, even small children think Adani is a ghost.
Now, let me ask you, you've talked about KenGen, the contract that, Adani Energy Solutions signed with
Ketraco, I think. It's Ketraco, sorry.
It's Ketraco,
yeah.
In the Ministry of Energy. When was public participation on that particular deal conducted? Because the biggest concern has been these deals being done, a lot of secrecy. When was public participation conducted?
Let me tell you something. Even when we were doing the SGR, public participation was already in place. When we were doing the expressway, public participation was in place. Nobody asked those questions. But let me tell you, Another law that is being misinterpreted to the detriment of this country is this thing called public participation. When you read Article 118, we are not having participation the kind I saw when you wanted to impeach Gachagua. The one that is everybody is thinking is the way to do public participation. Public participation is meant to make Parliament open to the public. So whatever is being done there, or any other thing that is done on behalf of the people of Kenya, should be open to them so that they know it is happening. So the mischief that public participation came to cure was this idea of citizens wake up and find a law has been made that is so detriment to their daily life, but they didn't know about it. For example, Kenyans today, many of them don't even know in Kenya it is illegal to sell unprocessed milk. That law was made almost secretly. So those are the things this thing came to cure. But to think that public participation is going to come as a public opinion poll, as a referendum on issues Kenya, how many public participations will you have? Because in this country, such big contracts are signed almost every other week. Parliament has business almost every other week, a new one. How many public participations are we going to do? If we are to do them the way I saw we did this one of impeaching Rigathi, public participation is to open what the government is doing, what agencies are doing, what statesmen are doing to public scrutiny. That is all. And whatever the public decides cannot change what powers were given, say, to Parliament to make laws, Parliament to impeach.
Okay, fair enough. Before I engage Mr. Sosion, I just want to know, so from what you're saying, if I heard you correctly, the public participation conducted during the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua is not it. That is not
how it is supposed to be done. In fact, where is it written that we are supposed to take such notes? Okay. If you look at Article 118, it only says give the people access so that they see what is happening, leave the media to tell them what is going on. Okay,
fair enough. Mr. Sosion, I don't know whether you agree with Mr. Owiri's statements in regards to public participation, because clearly, I mean, it's coming out that whatever he's saying is that public participation is not directly involving. I should not be, involving the public directly through collecting opinions.
And of course, that
is
is interpretation. If you are to get 100 people to give you opinions in this show about public participation, you will get 100 different opinions. Until and unless we have a public participation law, then we'll continue navigating in the darkness about what really public participation ought to be. And for now, what suffices is the ruling of the Supreme Court that, that gave general guidelines on how public participation will be done, that it must be both quantitative and qualitative, and it must be real public participation. Is entitled to his opinions, which is okay, and that is the depth of his intellectual understanding on the same. But from where I sit, when we negotiated this constitution, we wanted a country of accountability. And accountability to the extent that the people exercise their power. If you look at the preamble of the constitution, it says, we the people of Kenya give ourselves this constitution. And under Article 1, it says, the sovereign power lies with the people. The sovereign authority of the state does not lie with the president, with the executive. It doesn't. It lies with the people, and it is exercised by the people directly or through their representatives. And if you look at the structure of the constitution, it's just but general guidelines on how to run the country. And under Article 10, principles of governance and national values, it talks about public participation in general, that matters of the state being undertaken must be subjected to public participation as far as possible. So then the question begs, to what extent do you engage in public participation in all activities that affect the country? And you see, when people question now super contract like the PPP projects, it's because they want to understand. There's nothing wrong with the people. People want to understand. And it is up to us to make them understand. It is up to us to structure public participation within that context of that PPP so that the public can understand. And for me, I think there is need, and I've always argued, we need two urgent laws in this country. One on referendums, because the country many things must be taken to the referendums in the country in the most cost-effective way. Major decisions of the country, just put a question to the referendum. Let people vote. Let people understand. Conduct civic education. We are supposed to conduct civic education on major issues of the state. Say, for example, this impeachment. We would have had a day or two to conduct civic education with the public. And the public should be organized to try and understand what is it about the impeachment of the deputy president, what are the 11 counts, to what extent has he violated the constitution. Then they can give their submissions. That is one. Two, we must have a detailed act of parliament on public participation, which should bind all public institutions so that we can remove we can remove cartels. The cartels are everywhere.
Now, let me ask
cartels want shortcut. Cartels want to control and monopolize business.
Cartels
want to undermine government. Cartels want to exploit Kenyans. It's real. They are there.
Okay, fair enough. We always talk about cartels here in the country, but let's not talk about cartels at the moment. My question is, if at all it's about, you know, seeking funds for mega projects here in the country, and Mr. Doyle says, why are we, you know, condemning Adani? Now, this is not through competitive process. That is number one. Number two, it is not through competitive process, but one firm is getting, you know, is probably going to secure almost all deals in key sectors in the country. How comes that is not, you know, probably a red flag? You've talked about this company not having issues, but if you look at you know, some of the issues that Adani faces, or the allegations against Adani, the issues of tax evasion. I mean, they have cases in other parts of the world. We do not, you know, say that they've not done probably a good work somewhere, but there are key concerns about this particular company being given all these deals in the country, and it is not through competitive process.
You know, when Africa was shifting to China for development, it was questioned by many. But eventually, infrastructure in Africa is fully supported by China, better than the support that we used to get in the West. And if you look at roads, railways, and whatnot, it's now done by China. And African economies are not strong enough to support quick delivery of state-of-the-art projects like the airports, roads, power infrastructure, and the rest. And therefore, the principle of PPP, public-private partnership, it is there in law. We have an act in law. So what we should be talking about is, have we complied with the provisions of the law? It doesn't matter who is given the contract, but have we complied with the provision of the law? Is the company in question paying taxes? Is it complying with the law? And the question of public participation, how do you engender public participation in this so that Kenyans can also understand?
Okay,
and
fair
you are
enough.
on a contract for, and what is the experience of the company that you are giving? What are the deliverables, and for how long? For me, I wouldn't want to go into questioning names of this company and that company, because I also know there is business war. The cartels keep fighting. But you see, if you look at the 5 pillars of Kenya Kwanza, Kaitanya, allow me.
Briefly,
the pillar on agriculture. There are cartels that were interested in business, and they are being aged out of it, so they are fighting back. The same case in MSME.
No.
They will always fight back, and you can see cases in court. The same case with ICT infrastructure. The same case in housing. In fact, there are a lot in housing, because when we have low-cost housing emerging and mushrooming all over the country, and the potential buyers in the real estate are shifting to what is being provided by government, then definitely they will fight back. The UHC,
we will talk about that.
The UHC,
we will talk about that.
That is the home of all the criminal cartels.
Let me ask you, Mr.
And so
we'll talk about that kindly. Because the issue here for me is not really, you know, UHC or
no,
you know, housing.
I was giving you general
My question
general
is,
view.
my concern is, let me ask you, Mr. Doyo, why Adani? They're talking about 4 different deals that are coming up. Why Adani alone?
I think
because
you are...
before you respond, the reason I'm asking why Adani alone is that, for example, the issue of JKIA, there were other, you know, proposals sent, but only the Adani one was, you know, forwarded to the National Treasury. The others were not forwarded. Why? Why is it that it's only Adani?
Of course, there is evaluation, and you can't give this one contract to 2 people. And I have heard you talk about Adani is going to take so many contracts. Do you know in the last 10 years of Uhuru regime, about 3 Chinese companies did almost 20 projects in this country?
Can you name them?
And nobody spoke about.
Can you name them?
They are companies, so I do not want to name those companies.
No,
but if there are companies like China Bridge, there are companies like China Jiangsu, they have been doing multiple large projects in this country, same companies, and nobody talk about them. What I'm telling you, there is a spirited campaign that is being sponsored by very powerful people to paint everything that is taking place in the regime of President William Ruto now. And there's something that Mheshimiwa Sosion said about giving the public civic education. In the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, the public has no role other than to participate in public participation. If you look at the article that removes the president and the DP, which are read together, the public has no role. So the people who need civic education in that process are the legislators, both in Senate and the National Assembly. If they want to share that, what they know, with their people, they have the choice, because they are being paid to go there and share it with them. But to waste the resources to give people the civic education on a process that they had through the Constitution handed over to their elected representatives is to go back to people who have employed you.
Have you just said wasting resources, giving people
civic education? It is wasting resources to give people civic education on a role that they had already handed over to the MPs.
Gentlemen, I just want us to leave that at that particular moment. Let's look at the Standard this particular morning. And there's a story on page 3, if I'm not wrong, on doubts cast over body said to be that of a missing member of County Assembly. The missing member of County Assembly from Wajir County, the minority leader of that particular County Assembly, went missing on the 13th of September 2024. Now, a body was discovered just a couple of days ago. That is said to be the body of that particular gentleman. Now, it's called Hussein rather. The body was discovered in Lake Yahud in Wajir. Now, we're still seeing patterns of, you know, abductions here in the country, and, you know, people being found dead. What is going on, Mr. Sosion?
Before I get to that, I can just tie the loose end on the matter of public participation. There is what we call capacity building. Even for us in the teaching world, you can't assume that teachers are good all the time. Exactly. There must be continuous capacity building and support for them to understand emerging issues and have them grant them capacity to be able to work. The same case for Kenyans to exercise their sovereign power. They don't have to exercise it blindly. It can be catastrophic. And that is why it costs nothing to conduct civic education in the most cost-effective manner on key national issues through existing government structures in a simple way. Okay. And of course, anything like impeachment, like what key national issues, conduct quick civic education. You are rolling out universal health coverage. Conduct some simple civic education. And there are structures all through down. There's nothing wrong with that.
Universal health coverage is okay.
Yeah, we can do civic education on literally everything, depending on how you conceive. Now, back to security. And the president gave a commitment that indeed, this country will never see extra judicial killings anymore. As a democratic state, that is one of the most progressive constitutions with the protection and sanctity of life as a key thing. We should not be able to see how people being killed and a leader like an MCA and the body is found dumped in a dam. That is condemnable. And apart from being condemnable, we have security infrastructure in this country that is capable of tracking and knowing exactly what happened. National Intelligence Service is one of the most sophisticated institutions we have in this country. They can literally trace where everybody is in the country and what they are doing and where they are and where they were at what time. Okay. The DCI has got sophisticated infrastructure to do so. And for me, I would not like to speculate on that particular item, but I want to say the institution that are vested with the responsibility of undertaking investigations and getting individuals who are involved should be able to do so. I'm not aware of any killing in Kenya where it has not been possible to trace to trace the criminals who really are responsible. It is going to be necessary to do so and to do that. And the president, on the day of swearing in, he gave the independent status and accounting powers, the Inspector General of Police. So why can't they do their work? Let the security agencies do their work.
No.
You can't expect Kaitan to do that. You can only talk about it.
Okay.
You can't expect any of us. We can't expect the president to do that. That is not his work. There is the IG of police with the necessary resources, infrastructure, and highly skilled personnel to do that. Justice for that member of county assembly must be secured. Okay. And the criminals and those responsible must be brought to books. And any other death in Kenya. Fair enough. The best thing that we can do is to bring the criminals responsible to books. Fair enough. Whether they are ordinary Kenyans, whether they are ordinary criminals, or whether they are the police.
Okay, fair enough, Mr. Sosion. You've talked about how these agencies are sophisticated. They're funded to ensure that all these issues are solved. Mr. Odoyo, even as you give me your sentiments in regards to the abduction and, of this particular MCA and how he was murdered, of course there are claims regarding, doubts regarding whether it is him or not. But even as Mr. Sosion talks about these sophisticated agencies here in the country, the DCI, in dealing with these particular issues, they are funded. Let me pick one particular case. There's a gentleman, a student at JKUAT, who disappeared. It is said he was abducted during the anti-finance bill demonstrations, and his body was found in a quarry in Juja on July 23rd, 2024. Tomorrow will be October 23rd, 2024. We're yet to see progress. So how can we talk about sophistication when such matters cannot be handled and justice cannot be served?
First of all, that sophistication is not my statement, but let's look at it this way. I think when we take an MCA who was abducted, now this is what we call abduction. Not the ones we have been calling abductions. The ones we have been calling abductions, some of them are pure arrests that people have found in police station, and they said because he was arrested forcefully, it was an abduction. Arrests are generally, largely forceful because many people don't accept to be arrested. Even people who are caught red-handed committing crimes, they always resist arrest. So the fact that somebody has been forced into an arrest situation does not convert an arrest to an abduction. And then, two, bringing this case and then saying that President William Ruto had promised there will be no extrajudicial killings in Kenya. We are not going to attribute every killing in this country to the government. The government doesn't walk around killing people.
Who's
there are people who have their own enemies.
Let me ask you, who's responsible for the safety of the citizens?
I'm coming to that. Who is responsible? I'm coming to that. Who's responsible? The government.
Thank you very much.
Which government in this world has no extra deaths?
It's
has no illegal death.
My question is,
you are not going to belittle.
You've answered my question.
It's a big issue, but the president is not going to provide a bodyguard for every individual citizen.
It's not about providing a bodyguard. My question was, who is responsible for the safety of citizens in this country?
It is the government.
You said it is the government. The government is led by President William Ruto. We're not saying the president should provide bodyguards for each and every citizen, but it should be able to ensure that the citizens or the people he leads are safe.
Kaitan, your safety starts with you. If you are going to walk naked in the dark, and then you say the government is in charge of your security, you are going to get it wrong. If you are going to sleep in other people's houses with their wives, and you are going to say the government is in charge of your security, you are going to get it wrong. Your security starts with you, and the government will investigate and see who has assassinated you, who has killed you. But to think that every death found on the roadside, in the rivers, is attributed to government, when people have their own individual enemies that they have offended, it is the duty of the government to try to investigate.
Mr. Widi, nobody said it is.
But when you ask me a question that who is in charge of your security starts with you.
Thank you very much. It is Mr. Sosiano who raised the issue of president, and it is on record. The president said there will be no extra judicial killing. And that was just a point he was trying to raise.
And in that context,
thank you.
In that context, it meant that the state will not murder anybody. And the state has not murdered anyone.
Nobody said the state has murdered anybody. Well, gentlemen, on that particular note, we just take a brief breather, but we'll be back to talk about the key issues in the country today. The issue of who's the deputy president between ousted DP Rigathi Gachagua and the approved or deputy president designate, that is Kithure Kindiki, even after the National Assembly voted to approve his appointment, but he's yet to be sworn in because a conservatory order was issued by Justice Chacha Mwita stopping the swearing in of Professor Kithure Kindiki pending the hearing and determination of a petition filed by the legal team representing Rigathi Gachagua. That will be after this short break. Don't go away.
When it's a Saturday, there's only one entertainment show in East and Central Africa. Arena 254.